Hi all, welcome to my channel Java Soul. In today's video, we are going to explore how to read external configuration from Git with the Spring Boot. Before we start this video, if you like the content of this video, please subscribe my channel. Let's see what is external configuration first. External configuration means keeping configuration outside of our source code. Okay, either we can keep inside a file or environment variables so that we can modify them without having to change our actual code. Okay, this is helpful because it helps to keep sensitive information outside of our source code like an ADP password, an API key, and etc. Okay, as you can see here, I've already created one directory, config server. Inside this, created two folders, config with YML and config. Okay, purpose of to creating two folders here to show how to read on the files from different folders, okay, in a Git. So what we are going to do, we will read the configuration from each of the files of both of these folders. So how we are going to approach it, we will create first config server application, okay, which will connect with the Git repo and will um, get the file from there, and we'll create two client applications, okay, which will connect with the config server application, okay, and we'll read the properties from there. Now let's create an application. First we'll create an config server application, config server, and we will use dependencies for this config server: spring boot actuator, spring bap, and spring boot dev tool. Let's create one more application, config client. Here we'll use the dependencies config client, actuator, bap, and spring boot dev tool. Okay, now let's first configure this config server application. Okay, and let's open this pom.xml file first. If you can see here, we do have a dependency for config server, which will helps to connect with the DB, oh sorry, with the Git, okay, and get the file from there. And this tab tool, it will automatically restart our application. Okay, if you observe here, I'm not giving any version because Spring Boot will download based on the version of parent pom. Okay, let's set properties to connect to the Git. First, I'm adding here server.port. Port number is 888. Okay, it can be anything. Now, next property is to is for on the actuator management dot endpoints dot pap dot exposure include all. Now we'll add spring cloud config server git username. Okay, let me copy this. We'll add password, then URI. Okay, git dot, we'll add clone on start. So what it will do, it will clone the repository at the time of application startup. And now we'll add search path property here. Okay, we will pass here the folder name. And the benefit of this clone and starts, it's basically increase the performance of application. Huh? We'll pass the username here. The username is Rishi Satmas. Okay. Here we need to pass in password. Okay. Let's generate a token. I'll add here token. See, there are two options. Either you can pass in a password um, if your Git repository is in a is public. Okay. If it's in a private, so you can pass here in a token. Let's generate the token. First go to setting, then go to developer settings, then click on a personal access token. There are two options. Either you can generate a token, fine grained tokens or a classic token. So we will generate fine grained token. I have okay. Let's delete this first. We'll generate again. We'll create. We'll click on generate new token. We can pass some token name, config server demo. Okay, and we'll change this expiration time, and that's it. We'll click on generate token and we'll add the token here. Now we'll pass the URI. We'll go to repository and we'll copy this. That's it. Now we need to pass search path. So first we'll search the configuration inside a config with YML. So I'm passing config with YML here. Okay. Okay. One more thing we need to do. We need to add an annotation @ enable config server. Okay. Now it will enable this configuration server. Inside the config client, we have a dependency Spring Cloud starter config. So let's open this application.property file. Here we will add first server.port 8081 I'm taking. Then we'll add one more property spring.cloud, sorry, spring.config.import config server card and we'll pass here localhost colon 888 because our configuration server is running on 8888. Okay, so this client will connect to the configuration servers on this URL. Okay, spring config why we okay, now fine. So we will create one class for controller. Controller, then we'll create one more class app config. Here we'll use annotation @component and @configuration property. Okay, here we will pass prefix edge app. Okay, it's asking to add this annotation. Okay, fine. Now, because we are passing here the prefix is app, okay, prefix app means that the property will be bound, okay, to the field in app config that match keys under the section in our configuration. Okay, let's make it simple. So whatever property in our configuration will start with app, okay, will bound to the field of app config. So I'm going to create a field here, property string name, private string version, private database and database. Let me create one static class. Will let you know why I'm creating this. Static class database. Okay. So as you can see here, okay, this database is a nested property. Okay. This is having the others property also inside this database. Huh? So what I'm going to do, we'll take three more property, URL, username and password inside in database. Username, password. Now we'll create getter and setter method. Also we'll create getter setter for this also. Okay. Now let's see it again. So the property which is starting with the app, okay, will bound to the fields of app config class. So here you can see the property name, first property is name, version and database. Okay, is starting with app, okay, which will bound to the property of app config. If I'll take one more property here, and that property will not bound to anything. Okay, or if I'll take this name outside of this app, okay, then this is not going to bound to the name, this name. Okay, now if you observe here, greeting will also be not bound. Okay, if I'll take one property as a greeting, let's see it will bound or not. I'm going to create one getter setter method also for this, then we'll show you. Okay, next step is to inject this class and controller. We'll use here auto app config, app config. We'll add here annotation rest controller. Okay, now we'll create an API, public app config get app config, and we'll return app config. Get mapping, we'll pass here value as app config. Okay, that's it. Let's run this application. First we will run config server. Okay, we need to add one more property here. Spring profiles active. What it's doing there? Yeah. Profiles active dep. Okay, that means we are going to read configuration from the file f-dep.yml. Okay, because we have passed um, the folder, okay, search path value as a config with yml in search path. So the request will come here, and then we have set the profiles as an adapt, so it will read the configuration from this file. Okay, now let's make a request and we'll show you. Our application is running on 8081. Let me show you this config server. Okay, till now only one application is running. We need to run config client also. Oh God. If you observe here, it's fetching config from server. Okay, localhost 8888. Okay, and the profile um, as of now on the profile active profile is tab. Okay, let's call this API app config. So here we can see it's saying not found. Oh, now we are getting the data. Okay, so as you can see, this value is matching whatever is there in application-dep.yml file. Okay, now I'm updating profile to QA. Because we are using the dependencies tab tool, so it's automatically getting restart. Now let's make a request again. So you can see here we are getting the data um, from application-qa.yml file. Okay, till now we are reading the data from here. So let's see how we can read the data for this greeting also. Okay, if we want to read for any specific properties, how we can read? We can use @value annotation. Dollar curly braces and then greeting string. Okay, let's create one more API. Greeting and get greeting. Okay, why? Okay, we need to change the type also. Let's make a request for this API also localhost greeting here. As you can see, we are getting the value for greeting property also. Okay. Now let me remove the profiles. So we'll read from application.yml file, basically the default profile. So you can see we are getting from the application.yml file the value. Um, this value is there in a application.yml file. Okay. Now let's make this API request api-config. Here also you can see the data is coming from application.yml file. Okay. Yeah, I forgot to see this property greeting. If you can see here, we are getting null here. Okay, because it's not bounding with anyone. Now, okay, so we have so far we have seen these BIML files. Now will update the search path value to config folder in a config server. So we need to restart this config client. Okay, now let's make a request to app config. If you can see here, oh shit, I didn't change profile here. Let first check for the tab profile, then we'll see. So we are getting data for the depth profile. Okay, here inside in a tab properties file, if you can see, it's getting matched with this. Okay, if we'll update to QA, we'll read from application-qa.properties file. If I'm not passing any profiles, okay, then we'll read from application.properties file. Now let's see the one scenario. Okay, I'm making the changes in application-dev.properties file here itself. Let's see, our application will. Okay, I'm appending here -1. Now let's run it. Basically, let's make an app call to the API app-config. If you observe here, the changes is not reflecting. Okay. Um, See, we can get the changes either manually hitting the API of actuator refresh, okay, or we can add the refresh rate inside an application.properties file, okay. We can set some value like 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, but it will keep on checking after this much of time. Okay, periodically it will check. So I don't think so. It's a good idea. And also, okay, first let's hit the actuator refresh API, or if you also observe here, I'm making request upon a client application. Okay, let's hit this first and then we'll see. Okay, method type should be post. What's happening? Not found, really. So actuator is not there. Mhm. Okay, we need to add here um, actuator configuration management uh, dot endpoints dot pap dot exposure include all. Now call actuator refresh API. Okay, now I'm going to make a request to the app config. We'll see the data is getting reflected, changed data is getting reflected here. But think of the scenario in microservice world, there won't be one or two services. There will be 100 or thousands of services. So we need to make a request for all of those services manually. That's not a good idea. Okay. Um, how we can pull automatic configurations update on change? Either we can configure webhook, okay, in Git to notify config server, or we can set up config server to use Spring CloudWatch. Okay, we'll create a separate video on this. Okay, and there is other ways also to add external configuration. Either we can use uh, environment variables, okay, or we can use in a command line like while running your applications jar files, java hyphen jar and application name, then you can set the parameters also there, hyphen hyphen parameter name and then value. Okay, and also you can set the environment variables value with the commands like an set or an export. Set if you're working in a Windows, export if you're working in Linux. Okay, how we can do, we'll create a separate video for on that also. Okay, I've done for this video. If you like this video, please subscribe my channel. Thank you.